Well, it is about time.
I'm making sure the shipments start right away. In the next few hours, literally the few hours, we're going to begin sending in equipment to Ukraine for air defense munitions, for artillery, for rocket systems, and armored vehicles.
Biden today, in the wee hours of the morning, officially signed the Ukrainian aid package bill, which also included aid for Taiwan or the Indo-Pacific, Israel, and the dreaded TikTok ban. But now that the Ukrainian aid bill has passed, what is going to happen moving forward? And that is quite interesting because you know as much as I know that when it comes to these packages, Ukraine has been waiting for it for months. Back in December, before the Senate and Congress were supposed to go away on holiday vacation, they were supposed to sign these bills and never did. The original reason why Johnson didn't even bring it to the floor after the Senate passed it was because Trump had told him, hey, right now the border issue is the biggest thing out there. And it is something that I want to go against Biden in the upcoming election in November. So don't put anything on the floor, not just Ukrainian aid. Don't put anything on the floor until I tell you to. Now you're probably saying, but what happened in the past week? Well, there's been a lot of things that happened in the past really week and a half. And in a video that we kind of did on TikTok, we kind of talk about how not only were us Americans caught off guard, but also the Russians. The Russians never thought in a million years that this would be brought to the floor and actually be voted on. Something that here in the US we desperately needed Ukraine to get. But because of Johnson holding it back, we never thought it would actually happen, at least until November. But luckily, something down the line, we don't really know exactly what snapped in Johnson, but he changed his mind and was able to decide and do the right thing to move forward with aid with Ukraine. Now, what is quite interesting is the fact that leading up to this vote, I think Johnson himself put himself in a hole. You see, he had Democrats saying that, hey, you need to put this stuff on the floor. If not, we could potentially grab some Republicans and try to vote you out of office. Because in the House, the Republicans really only had a very slim majority. Only a few votes here and there could sway in the Democratic side. And so the Democrats could say, we want, X, Y, and Z done. If not, we're going to threaten you with kicking someone out. But then people in his own party, started by Congresswoman Green, said that we would kick you out if you put this on the floor. So Johnson found himself, between a hard place and a rock. Either be pretty much kicked out by the Democrats and get someone else to be voted in, or being kicked out by his own party. And at least with the Democrats, he could negotiate. With the Republicans, like Green, for example, even up to the vote for Ukraine, she already said, let's get rid of all of this. Like, not even like a compromise. It was like, we're not doing it at all. So Johnson had no choice. It was either bring this stuff to the floor or be voted out one way or another. And at least with the Democrat side, he could do it with them, compromise on something such as humanitarian aid. He added more humanitarian aid in for Israel. And then from there, they would save his seat. Just in case if Republicans decide to vote him out, they would be there with a handful of Republicans saying, nope, he's staying put. And that's what kind of happened. That's why this was able to get to the floor. And I think it got to the point in time where he just said, we're doing it. We're putting them on the floor. He even put border aid or border rules and bills on the floor, and that failed, by the way. That was a fifth bill that didn't pass. So once those bills passed, it got to the Senate. They were supposed to discuss it for like 48 hours. Then at 7 p.m. last night, they said, no, we've done enough discussing. We discussed enough. We're going to go ahead and just pass this now, and they did. And then Biden said the second that he would get it, he would sign it, and then that's what happened. But what exactly happens now? Now that $60.84 billion of aid is going to Ukraine. Remember that most of that is not going to Ukraine. A lot of people still have that misunderstanding that, they're getting 60.84. No, I think realistically, they're only really going to see 14 of that. And that 14 of that is not a check to Ukraine. It's money in a bank account here in the US that the U.S. is going to use to buy the weapons or manufacture the weapons. So
we're sending Ukraine equipment from our own stockpiles. Then we'll replenish those stockpiles with new products made by American companies here in America. Patriot missiles made in Arizona, Javelins made in Alabama, artillery shells made in Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Texas. In other words, we're helping Ukraine while at the same time investing in our own industrial base, strengthening our own national security, and supporting jobs in nearly 40 states all across America.
Taxpayer money stays here, goes to U.S. jobs, U.S. companies, U.S. taxes, and then those weapons go to Ukraine. And remember, we're talking about Ukraine getting these at full price. And some of these weapons, by the way, are from a drawdown. And, let's say, look at some of the Patriot missiles, things like that. Actually, it's a bad example, but look at the older equipment we're sending them. Some of that stuff's arriving to Ukraine with expiration dates for this year. So it's not like the newest top of the line stuff. It's stuff that's been sitting in storage for a decade. And the U.S. is actually saving money by actually removing it. So when Biden signed this bill, if you listen to his speech, he said, quote, that it gives vital support to America's partners so they can defend themselves from threats from their sovereignty, and that Kyiv would be getting weapons in the next few hours. And that confused people. How's it possible that Ukraine's going to be able to get weapons within the next few hours? Jump back to December. Remember that it's Pentagon, they had packages for Ukraine kind of ready to go, all on standby, ready to kind of push forward to say, hey, we have this. As soon as I sign it, we'll give it to you. And it's been a while since December, and the DOD and the Pentagon, they kind of did something that's quite smart. They knew that at any point, some kind of bill can come to the floor, it could be signed, and they prepare for many scenarios. And in order to prepare for this, months ago, they sent these shipments to a lot of their NATO bases, okay, in Germany and in Poland. And they kind of just let them sit somewhere in the back of whether it's a bunker or a warehouse, and they just kind of sit there, knowing that at any moment, the stuff could be signed and they can hand this stuff over. And so the second that Biden signed it, what did they do? They were legally allowed to pick up that equipment or those missiles or whatever, load them onto trucks, load them onto trains, whatever they need to, and send them to Ukraine. So, yeah, when he signed that, it put in motion that kind of movement to get that stuff to Ukraine as soon as possible. And, let's be honest, it's kind of good because Ukraine needs stuff desperately. And you're probably saying, well, what exactly are they going to get right now? Well, Zelensky did a speech. He always does a speech, his evening speech. And he said, these days, we've been working with our American friends as actively as possible at all levels to quickly fill this package from the United States with exactly the weapons that our soldiers need, from ATACMS and artillery, from anti-tank weapons and missiles for HIMARS, to the necessary air defense and equipment. So, without really saying it, we all kind of know what he's talking about here. Patriot missiles. Remember that Zelensky on April 11th talked about how Russia had sent 11 missiles to their power plant, and they only had 7 Patriot missiles left. And they took down 7 of them, and the other ones, there really was no choice. They kind of had to let those missiles come in. So, we know that those are some things that are going to be sent right away. HIMARS, I'm sure they have their anti-tank weapons and other stuff, might be things that may need to take a little more time. But I think the smaller stuff, I think HIMARS, I think that ATACMS, and I think that Patriot missiles, those are probably going to be in Ukraine within the next 6 hours. Something they can quickly just kind of throw on a train or a bus or a truck and get it through the Polish border and sent to wherever they need to go. They could probably be active by this weekend, depending on where it needs to go and how hard it is to get it there. But that's what we're kind of looking at. Now, how's it going to change the war? Well, as I said earlier, we did a whole video on TikTok kind of breaking down how Russia is responding to this. And it is quite interesting. As us Americans were surprised that this was even being, talked to. Just a week ago, it wasn't even being voted on. So for it to be voted on so quickly and thrown together so quickly, it not only caught us off guard, but also the Russians that had absolutely no idea whatsoever that this was coming, which is great for Ukraine, even though it's not good they haven't had the weapons all this time. But it's great because now Russia has all of its resources spread out in areas that are not going to be good for them, but it's going to be great for Ukraine. And what I mean by that is, let's look outside of Bakhmut. Russia has been preparing to send 20 to 25,000 troops with tanks, artillery, all these weapons to try to push deeper into Ukraine, thinking that, well, Ukraine's not going to be able to get any weapons anytime soon. F-16s, oh, they're not going to even have that for another few months, even though we know that they're probably going to get them, it's the beginning of June. So they probably said, if we put all these men here and we kind of push forward and try to, put manpower, because Russia, they're using World War II tactics, they're just kind of throwing as many men at the meat grinder. And so Russia never expected that Ukraine would be getting long-range missiles from HIMARS to ATACMS. They didn't think that, like, for example, if you don't know, after the U.S. passed their thing, the UK announced their largest ever military package for Ukraine, including 400 vehicles and a lot of equipment and 1,600, I think, Storm Shadows. And so Ukraine now went from not having anything, no reinforcements, no support from the West, out of nowhere, now has all of these weapons, a lot of missiles, and Russia is now vulnerable because now Ukraine, with air defenses, are going to have more control of their skies. With F-16s, they're going to be able to control what's going on the battlefield. And then, of course, with HIMARS, Storm Shadows, and ATACMS, they can now fire deep into Russian positions. So right now, I'm sure the Russian military is like freaking out. They're caught off guard. They were already trying to plan to take that little village outside of Bakhmut by May 9th. And realistically speaking, Ukraine's not going to have all those weapons and everything that was promised to them from the UK. Heck, remember the Czech initiative that's supposed to give all those shells. Those things are still going to come, just kind of more or less, I think it was end of July. So you say to yourself, Russia is still going to be pushing really hard in May and a little bit of June. But once Ukraine gets the oil in these gears moving, they're going to start really mowing over these Russians. Ukraine's going to take these long-range or medium-range missiles, plus their Neptunes and the new S-300s that they brought back online, and they're going to use those ones to strike deep into Russia, oil refineries, factories, repair shops, any kind of T-72 tank rehab centers, and they're going to take those out, while using the local stuff to take down any kind of supply chain, whether it's the Kerch Bridge in Crimea, whether it's the new train tracks that Russia's been putting together in the train bridges, whether it's just right outside of Kharkiv, where Russia's been building up this kind of decent amount of reinforcements trying to push. And while all that's going on, Ukraine also has F-16s in the skies, which are being protected by Patriots, and another set of S-300s. And then those are going to be attacking the ground, the F-16. So, like, as you could see, this right now is like the combination of a lot of stuff going on at once. And it's weird because you think, in a way, they almost orchestrated it this way to catch Russia off guard. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to sound weird. I don't like conspiracies, but it almost seems like they wanted Russia to draw out all its troops in one direction to a point where, it would take, I think, like a month and a half, someone said online, for Russia to pull back the equipment and to reallocate it across different areas. But right now, there's just a large concentration of it in certain areas, which, with the HIMARS and Storm Shadows, Ukraine is going to hit, which is great for Ukraine. So that's kind of where we're at right now, and I will tell you, there's probably a lot more stuff going on behind the scenes that we truly don't know about, and for good reasons. We don't know for a fact exactly the date the F-16s are going to arrive. We don't know exactly when the HIMARS and other things are going to arrive. We don't know if Ukraine's using Neptunes or getting ready to attack other ships. There's a lot of things happening behind the scenes that, once again, I think it's kind of good that we don't know. But let me know what you think about all of this in the comment section below. And I know we didn't really talk about the TikTok ban, and that's mostly because we really don't know what's going to happen with that And I know we're big, not to say we're big on TikTok. We're pretty much at 300,000 followers. But on TikTok, it is something that's going to take a year to be figured out, even though the ban has been signed, or there could lead to a ban. And it's going to go to the Supreme Court, where they're going to probably say that it's either in violation of freedom of speech, meaning that you can't have them banned, or they're going to agree with everyone and say, no, this is allowed. And ByteDance said, we're just going to get rid of it, because here in the US, we only make up, I think, 2% of all of their users. And they don't want to give their algorithm to, whether it's Meta or whoever is going to buy it. And so they'd rather just sell it. And so, well, we could save that for another video months down the line when we finally figure out what's going to happen to it. Really, right now, the important thing is that Ukraine is finally getting the aid it needs from the US, from the UK. Look at the Czech Republic. There's a lot of things going on right now. And no, we don't have Tauruses coming from Germany yet. Hopefully soon. Hopefully soon. But anyway, if you guys have any questions whatsoever, let me know in the comment section below. And if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe and turn on notifications. We're trying to get this channel monetized so that if there is a ban on TikTok, we'll be able to at least try to keep the operations going on here on YouTube. Anyway, I'm Joey. Stay safe. See you later. Bye. Oh, so you made it to the end of the video. Okay, cool. Not many people do, so let's have some fun. Okay, in the comment section, I want you to write this, and let's just see if people start going like, what the heck are these people talking about? I want you to type in there these exact words. I'm so glad that bear attacked that tank. Just put that in there. And let's just see. Let's see what people are, they're like, what? What are they talking about? I just figure it's some fun, especially because, once again, not many people make it to the end. And if you make it to the end, you should be rewarded. An inside joke with you and me. Anyway, I'll see you later. Bye.